your invulnerability will never become apparent to you as long as you're playing in the field of mutually agreed upon definitions that all of you together have made up as a substitute for the direct experience of truth. As long as you choose not to have a direct experience of your invulnerability, because you would rather have this farce of an experience of independence and the thrill that comes with it, the fear that comes with it. You will not be able to fathom or experience the fact that you're invulnerable and that you're incapable of being actually threatened. As a result, you will not be able to join me in teaching this truth. You will not be in a position to join in teaching the atonement, and you will not be an agent for change or a healer. And let's just touch on a little thing here. All of you must become healers. That's part of the unavoidable process of coming home, of awakening. And we've discussed it in other words before. You become a healer by having an object of your affection, you see? And you have an object of your affection because that's the way you break the isolation. That's the way you break your aloneness. And that's the way you break the one thing that seems to make fear be reasonable in your logic. Break the aloneness and fear will become impossible. Continuing, assault can ultimately be made only on the body. There is little doubt that one body can assault another and can even destroy it. Yet if destruction itself is impossible, then anything that is destructible cannot be real. And here we are again. Your body is the visibility and tangibility of your individuality, and your individuality is derived from God now, forever. And the fact is that if you seemed to be killed at this instant, you would find in the very next instant that you still existed and you still were identified visibly and tangibly. And you would find that that which identified you was not affected by the apparent killing. Now, the point is to make this shift to the awareness of the impossibility of the destructibility of you in any way, shape, or form without having to be killed to find out. To make this shift now by letting there be a sudden shift of perception. Which is what? What is a sudden shift of perception? A miracle, yes. Again, yet, if destruction itself is impossible, yet if destruction itself is impossible, then anything that is destructible cannot be real. Well, let's understand that if you seem to be killed right now and there's a body lying here that must be buried, it doesn't mean that your body wasn't real. But what it means is that the definition everybody had of you that's still lingering in their mind has to be dealt with, while you, unaffected whatsoever in terms of your eternal and uninterruptible being, are continuing to wake up with all your parts present, accounted for, and available to express God. Now the point is, let's let them be present, available, accounted for, to express God now by not defining your body as anything other than the visibility and tangibility of your individuality, which is God expressed. And let's not claim a mind other than the Holy Spirit, that which is nothing more than your right mind, which is devoted to the Father's will, which is devoted to the absolutely flawless experience of creation, of being the movement of creation. Again, yet, if destruction itself is impossible, then anything that is destructible cannot be real. Therefore, its destruction does not justify anger. Your ego rears its ugly head and screams, "Foul play." It does justify anger, your ego says. I'm sorry. But you can't solve the problem from the level of the problem. And anger is one of the means you use to try to solve a problem from the level of the problem. Continuing, to the extent to which you believe that it does justify anger, you must be accepting false premises and teaching them to others. Because you're teaching, you're always teaching. The message which the crucifixion was intended to teach was that it is not necessary to perceive any form of assault in persecution because you cannot be persecuted. If you respond with anger, you must be equating yourself with the destructible and are therefore regarding yourself insanely. You see, we're holding to the line right through this. If you are insisting upon seeing yourself as an independent, self-existent entity, you have divorced yourself in your mind from your source, which causes you to experience a loss of identity. In the presence, you might say, or in the absence of an experience of identity, you create one out of whole cloth for yourself. This identity which you have created is purely fallacious. Unreal. And everything that follows from whatever definition you give yourself is equally illusory, and it causes the kingdom of heaven, any part of the kingdom of heaven or of creation that you look at, to be seen falsely. And you are all subject to the devotion that you bring to this definition of yourself. This is why the statement, "There is another way to look at this," is so pertinent, so essential, because it's on the basis of the meaning of that sentence that you can bring yourself to withdraw your devotion to your current definition of yourself and be less defended against the influx of inspiration, to be less defended against those of the brotherhood who stand with you constantly, waiting for the barest glimmer of consciousness, you might say, where your attention is being able to wander outside of your commitment to your definition and be available to recognize the presence of one of us, and perhaps hear us, and thus provide the conscious experience of a link that you had forgotten that you had. An actual state of brotherhood that you had forgotten that you were a part of. The crucifixion did not destroy me, which means that the idea that all of you play with in your mind, that there is such a thing as crucifixion, is false. And if you will stand back far enough to see the contrast of the crucifixion and the resurrection, and the fact that it states that crucifixion didn't succeed, and that it didn't succeed because it's an illusion, and that therefore your existence is not only available after crucifixion, it's present before a crucifixion, and it's present during a crucifixion, and therefore a crucifixion is nothing but a distraction from something that has been uninterrupted and inviolable. And that's the lesson of the crucifixion. The crucifixion demonstrated that crucifixion is impossible, and therefore it's impossible for you. And what is this uninterruptible continuity of the conscious experience of being going on behind an apparent crucifixion? It's the presence of the Christ, which does know its Christhood before, during, and after a crucifixion. So let's not bother to endure more crucifixion. It's not necessary. We're laying a wonderful groundwork here for release. And I want to finish with one thing as you go into the next week. To be willing to abandon the self-definitions that you have created for yourself. In abandoning those definitions, so that you don't see your brother threatening you, whether he thinks he's threatening you or not. This does not exonerate your brother from projecting on you his own definitions of self that are ones of inadequacy, incompetency, loneliness, fear, and the great need for defense. And whatever of those self-definitions your brother chooses to project on you still stand there calling for correction. Education through love and perseverance and steadfastness for the truth of them, no matter how much they try to argue on behalf of the sense of inadequacy which they mightily defend and do not want to let go of. When you see with the Father, when you see with me, you will not look at a brother projecting his fears and say, nothing is going on there that needs correction. But you know what? You will not be reactive to the awkward and unloving expressions of fear that your brother is projecting toward you. And as a result, you won't fall back into the habit of reacting from within the level of the problem and thereby teaching the problem, reinforcing the problem further. You will respond with clarity and with love that is indeed demanding of your brother to look again, because there is a place in him, a place of excellence, an altar. His right mind. That is a far more satisfying experience than the one he's currently suffering in. Now that's as close as I'm going to get at this time to a practical application of what we've been talking about. But that alone is significant. I love you all. And I look forward to being with you next week.